We're going to go ahead and get started. So like I mentioned, if you're here, you're probably experiencing some sort of challenge. Thank you to those of you who have already filled out our poll. And if you are experiencing these challenges, the good news is you are not alone. All of these things ended up in our poll. All of these challenges ended up on our screen because we have been hearing from companies. We have been hearing from our educational partners who are interacting with their companies that these are challenges a lot of folks are experiencing. Now, I'm not just here to be a downer and say, yeah, these things are rough. The good news is micro-internships can help you address each one of these challenges. So we're going to talk about how. Also want to share up front some examples of success that other folks have found in addressing these issues using micro-internships. I'm also going to put a link in the chat if you want to check out some more examples of success from various companies. Now, I also want to be very clear. Typically, we don't share the names of companies who are using Parker Dewey because we 1000% respect your confidentiality. So everyone you see on the screen right now is either a company that publicly spoke about their experience first or explicitly gave us permission. So we hope that you will check out those examples as just proof. This isn't lip service. This is something that actually works. Now, I know I used the term micro-internships a couple times already, so I should probably start with actually defining that. Might also be helpful if I introduced myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Ruger-Morawski. I am the Associate Director of Partnerships at Parker Dewey. Before I joined the Parker Dewey team, I used to work in career services, and I worked with so many talented students that wanted to learn about new companies, that wanted to engage in opportunities, but were struggling with some of the traditional methods. And that's why I really love micro-internships, because not only do they help you address those challenges that we had in that poll, but they are so accessible for students. So in defining them, I'm going to explain why. Now, micro-internships, the short definition, are short-term paid professional projects completed by college students or recent graduates on behalf of you all, the busy professionals. I see one of our top responses was that y'all are short-staffed. You need help? Current students and recent graduates are a great place to get it. Now, as opposed to your traditional internship, where both you and the student or recent graduate have to make a little bit of a longer-term commitment, micro-internships are project-based. So we're not asking you, what are your needs 10 to 18 weeks into the future? We're asking, what do you need help with now? Now, typically these projects are somewhere between 10 to 40 hours, but we sometimes do see larger projects. It's just all about having that specific project-based deliverable. So as long as they're working on a specific deliverable, the project can be larger, or you could perhaps break a project up into multiple phases and multiple micro-internships. Now, part of our goal at Parker Dewey, like I mentioned before, we want things to be accessible to students. We want this to be equitable. So with that in mind, every single Parker Dewey project is required to be paid, but this is still super cost effective for you. So I'm going to be talking, I see a lot of folks have also said their budget constraints. I'm going to be talking about exactly how cost effective this is here on another slide. But in the meantime, just want to highlight only a couple of $100 typically. And these are for real projects. So you're getting something off of your plate. You're paying for real work. 90% of what you pay goes directly to the micro intern. So you're building those relationships. We, Parker Dewey, only retain 10% to cover our costs of being the employer of record. And that's somewhere else where we are making things very easy for you. Because you may be thinking, well, for projects that are these short term, figuring out payroll and tax forms and all of that, it's just more trouble than it's worth. And that's why we take all of that off of your plate and we put it onto ours. We are the employer of record for all of these projects, meaning you don't have to worry about payroll. You don't have to worry about tax forms. You don't have to worry about any of that administrative burden. We are taking care of all of it. Now, as I mentioned, these are already cost effective in the first place, but we also have an exciting program going on right now that allows you to engage specifically students and recent graduates from Florida and Connecticut institutions in 15-hour projects at absolutely no cost to you. The student or recent graduate will still get paid for completing your project, but again, no cost to you. So if you're on the fence, you're thinking, okay, I see the logic, I see how this could help me out, but you want kind of that free trial, if you will, this is a great opportunity to do it. Now, these projects are also on demand. So your project needs don't have to align with a traditional academic schedule. If you have a need right now, you could post a micro internship today and have a student working on it within a matter of days. It doesn't matter where we are in the academic calendar. And we'll hop into the platform. You can see how easy it is to post a project, and you'll notice that folks are encouraged to post projects remotely because, again, this increases accessibility. You might be able to engage a super talented student that maybe just isn't currently in your geographic area, but might be willing to move there after graduation, or maybe a talented student that is only 20 minutes away, but doesn't have that car yet. So it really enhances and expands the populations you're able to reach. We also like to make it clear that micro-internships are professional projects. And what we mean by professional, because there are different definitions, is that these are the same types of assignments you would give to a traditional intern, or maybe even a new full-time hire. It's just that this short-term flexible nature allows both of you to make sure, okay, this is a good fit before having to commit to anything longer term. And if it isn't a good fit, saves both of you some time, and you in particular, some money. So let's go ahead now that we have defined micro internships, and let's talk about some of the ways that we see different companies using these. Looking at the poll here, I see that some folks were saying lack of talent pipeline is an issue, insufficient interest. You're trying to make folks aware of your brand. Micro internships are a great way to do that. And it works because the students are looking at the projects as opposed to just the company and whatever preconceived notions they might have about that company, or perhaps absolutely no knowledge of that company at all. The way Trained Technologies uses this is a great example. They wanted to build their pipeline, so they thought, what are some real things that we need done that are going to bring us value, but aren't the best use of our existing team's time? So things like developing a pressure model, things like researching some energy-saving technologies, things like updating a user manual. Again, things that bring value, but maybe not the best way for the existing team to be using their resources. And they had college students and recent graduates do those projects, so they're getting the win of those things getting done. And at the same time, the students who applied for those projects, engaged in those projects, were also becoming aware of Trained Technologies as a company, saying, oh, this is actually a pretty cool company I hadn't been aware of before. So when they had those longer term opportunities, like their engineering internship or their entry-level systems applications engineer role, these students were interested and excited to apply. So this right here is to also make it clear, we see micro internships from all different types of industries, all different types of departments, and all different sizes of companies. We're seeing folks from your big ones like Microsoft to maybe you haven't heard of AFJ Consulting before, but great opportunity for them to get their brand out there, for a student to be aware of the kind of opportunities they have. And then we're showing Trained Technologies here again, because we want to highlight that micro internship shouldn't be something where you're putting the whole fate of the company on a micro intern's shoulders by any means. These are projects that are going to bring you value, but aren't going to be, super top tier priority. But you can, and this highlights this, you can get some pretty technical projects done with micro internships, as is highlighted by Trained Technologies using a micro intern to collect some technical specs data. I personally don't even know what that means, wouldn't know where to start, but the micro interns on the platform know how to do it. So as promised before, when I said I was going to talk about those cost impacts, we have reached that slide. Now, before I get to the cost, I first want to talk a little bit more about accessibility. I think I mentioned I come from a career services background, so this is something that is particularly exciting to me. Because when you look at the data and you look at who is being able to engage in traditional, or who's being selected for traditional paid internships, which studies have shown over and over again really have value for folks as they're starting their careers, only 26%, just over a quarter, are going to students from historically underrepresented populations. But alternatively, when you look at Parker Dewey micro-internships and who is getting selected for these projects, we are so excited to highlight that 80% of the students and recent graduates who are being selected come from historically underrepresented populations. Now, moving on to that cost benefit, when we look at the traditional cost per campus hire, if you need this just for on-demand project support, that is a-okay. But if you're also looking at it as a tool for your longer-term hiring needs, those needs traditionally are running anywhere from $3,500 to nearly $7,000 per hire, which is a pretty steep cost. When we're looking at micro-internships, however, not only are you saving a lot of that money, but the money that you are spending is primarily going into the pockets of the students and recent graduates that you want to build those relationships with. So it's really doing you a service. And a reminder again, if you are interested in engaging Florida or Connecticut students and recent graduates in particular, right now we have that exciting program that allows you to engage them in 15-hour projects at absolutely no cost to you. So when we're looking at that difference between nearly $7,000 to, if Florida and Connecticut students meet your needs, $0, you are super saving on your longer term goals. And then another way that micro-internships help companies save on expenses is retention. So I imagine that a few of the folks in the room might be familiar with these numbers. Less than half of all recent graduates are staying in their first full-time role for over a year. That's a lot of money to be spending on students and recent graduates who aren't going to be staying there for very long. Alternatively, when we look at recent graduates who have completed micro-internships, we're seeing a very different story. 98% of former micro-interns who are in their first full-time role, whether it's with the company they micro-interned with or with a different company, are staying there for longer than a year. And we attribute this to the fact that they are using these micro-internships as a way to be able to understand, is this a good fit for me? Is this industry somewhere I can see myself working? In some instances, is this company somewhere I can see myself working? And sometimes the answer is, I wouldn't have found this without the project, but heck yes, I am happy to be here for a while. And sometimes the answer is, I thought this was it, but it is not. Let me scoot on to somewhere else. And that, again, saves both the student and the company time and saves the company some money in terms of that retention. Now, we are example folks at Parker Dewey, so want to highlight again, this is not just lip service. This is not just us saying, wouldn't it be nice if it did this? This is real results. So what we have here on this page is, again, those challenges that y'all may be facing. Looking at what we have the most of, the budget constraints. So just an example, each of these leads to a story. I'll put this story in the chat if you want to read about it. But this student was able to support a company, help with what they were doing, really bring some unique perspective, again, in a very cost-effective way. And I see that we have folks who have selected a lot of the different challenges on our poll. So later when you get these slides, please feel free, click on the different stories and read just one of the many examples of how micro-internships have helped companies address these issues. So we're halfway through our 30 minutes. Hopefully at this point you're thinking, all right, I see the benefits, I'm interested. How do I get started? So as mentioned, this is an interactive webinar. Sorry, I know I got off screen there for a little bit. There we go. Recommend you to follow along because it is super easy and free to create an account and post your micro-internship project. So this page right here, the page I just put in the chat, is going to make it super easy for you to create that account. When you get to this page, just hit create my project. Now, in my case, I am already logged into a Parker Dewey account and just want to show you how easy it is to create an account. There's not a lot of information required. I just put myself a smart company because I'm getting the help of these students and recent graduates, put in a little bit of information about your company, and then that is it. You are ready to go and start posting those projects. So if we look back, you can create your project if you have a custom project in mind, something that you need done, or if you need a little bit of help thinking, okay, what exactly can these students and recent graduates do? How can I take advantage of this? We also have some preset templates for you. So as you're scrolling through these, maybe you're thinking, oh yeah, there is that blog post I've been meaning to write forever and I just don't have time. I need some support or I want a student's perspective. You can click on that template. It is going to do the work of preloading that project for you. And then you're going to put in just a few details about your company. You can clarify whether you want it to be remote or on-site. But again, if at all possible, we highly recommend remote because it increases that accessibility. Now, to be clear, this is just information for the program if you are doing this through the DeLuca program. If you want to post a project, and that DeLuca program, again, is for Florida and Connecticut students. If you want to post a project and have it be open to anyone, you said, I'm happy to fund my own project, I want to see the array of talent that is out there, then you can just go from your profile and create a project from scratch. But if you want to make sure that it is part of this funded program, then just make sure you go through that landing page in the chat. So in the case of the DeLuca program, and you can make sure it's part of that program by seeing this preloaded right here, this just lets you know what the student will be paid. Again, for these 15-hour projects, you don't have to pay anything. You can put in a few more pieces of information. Now, if you want to do something outside of this program and engage different institutions, you also have the ability to feature your project to specific schools. So as mentioned before, we've seen companies use this as a pipeline. Maybe you want to use micro-internships as a way to audition talent for a traditional internship or for that entry-level role. And maybe you want to feature it to schools who are in your local area. So you know if they do a great job, you're going to be able to bring that student in person, even if the first project was remote. You can even clarify whether you want to engage current students, recent graduates, or you're open to all. And you have that opportunity to clarify too, is this being used to identify talent for a longer term opportunity? Now, this question, why do you think we should select you, is always here. And you have the opportunity if you want to add additional questions. Again, these are super low risk projects. You're not committing to someone for even a semester. You're committing for one project. They're super cost effective. So a lot of companies feel comfortable just with this one question. And once you hit that blue button, it is out there for students and recent graduates to see and to start asking questions, or to not start asking questions, to start answering questions. So that first step, post your project, we just walked you all through that. And again, that link is in the chat. The next question, fun part, check out those applicants. Start to think about who you want to have on your project. You will get a daily digest of the folks who have engaged or folks who have applied for your project. And we encourage you to check that out, but probably not going to get it for too many days because a lot of folks use these to move quickly. You can make that selection in just a couple of days. So when you're looking at these students, you'll be able to see the way they responded to those questions. You'll be able to see the information from their profile. And you do have the ability, if you want to send them a message, you can certainly do that. But again, a lot of companies will feel comfortable because this is such a short-term, low-risk opportunity to be able to make their decision without having to do any sort of further interview process. So for those folks who in the poll said, I'm busy, I don't have a lot of money to be spending, I need help now, this is a way to do it so unbelievably efficiently. And then that work gets done. So something we hear from companies sometimes when we are first introducing this is maybe a little bit of a hesitancy to do something new, because we know you all are busy, you're doing a lot. And that's why we want to make it so super duper clear. This is designed to make your life easier, not just add something else to the workload. You are going to be getting a project that is on your to-do list accomplished, while simultaneously accomplishing some of your other goals in terms of engaging early career talent. And it's up to you how you want to make sure this student is ready to go. You can engage however you want, whether it's sharing details over phone, email, video call. We are here to support both parties, both you and the students and recent graduates, to make sure everyone is on the same page, to make sure everyone is running smoothly. Again, we like to make sure we include data because we know data and examples are important. And the data has shown that over 98% of these micro interns are either meeting or exceeding employer expectations when it comes to these projects. And I know I already mentioned this, but reminder too, we're supporting the students on their side as well to make sure that everyone has a good professional experience. So there are a variety of different ways that you might use these micro internships. These are just a few examples of how we've seen various companies take advantage. For other members of your team, maybe you yourself have your head above water, but you know there are some other folks back at the office that really could use some support. This is a great way to help them out. Already mentioned, but want to say it again, audition for open roles. Rather than make a long-term commitment to something and realize 1 or 2 weeks in, ooh, this is not a good fit, but we've both committed, why not use one of these short-term projects to simultaneously get something done, but also make sure this is going to be a good fit for a longer-term opportunity? We also see some companies using these to support their employee resource groups, really putting some money behind us. Again, very cost-effective amount of money, but putting money behind those organizations, behind those ERGs, and saying, we support what you're doing. And here's a micro intern to support your efforts with whatever that may be. And also, way to give some community support. So if you are looking to maybe give back to your alma mater, you want to give an opportunity to a student who is where you once were, this is a great way to engage them as well. So next steps, pretty straightforward. Hopefully y'all were following along and maybe even created your accounts during this webinar, is to go ahead and create that account. It takes a matter of minutes. Posting the project takes a matter of minutes. It is out there then for students and recent graduates to apply. And if you are going through this DeLuca program, that's the link in the chat again, there is no cost to you to engage a student or recent graduate from Florida or Connecticut in one of these 15-hour projects. And if you want to keep it open to other folks, you want to engage other schools and fund your own project, you are only invoiced once you select your micro intern or micro interns for the opportunity. So no harm, no risk, no anything to just get on there, post that project, and see what kind of candidates you get. So with that, folks, I know we're doing actually pretty well on time. I'm sorry if I talked too fast today, but we've got another poll for you. I want to know, now that you know how micro internships work, how you think you might decide to engage these students and recent graduates. And with that, I want to open it up to questions. I'm here to support. I see my friend Annie is also in the chat to support. If you have a question that would be easier to ask by articulating it as opposed to putting it in the chat, just raise your hand and I will hit the button to allow you to talk. But we're just here to support any questions that you may have. All right, I see a question. Is this available year-long? Yes, these micro-internships are available at any time of year. You could post a project today, you could post a project next week, you could post a project next year. Now, that stated, the DeLuca program that we've highlighted today, the one that allows you to engage Connecticut and Florida students in 15-hour projects at absolutely no cost to you, that funding is only available through 2023. So while there is some flexibility, we always encourage folks who are thinking about this to go ahead and do it sooner rather than later, because like with everything else in life, if you put it off, then eventually it's that looming thing that I should do, but I just never get to. It's so easy. With the time we've got left that you were scheduled to be here anyway, 5 minutes, you could have your account created and your opportunity posted. So I see the question, why does it say we pay $333 even if it is through the grant funded link? So this, and admittedly, the print is a little small, but let me scoot up here so you can see this. Right here, it reminds you, if you are participating in a program funded by a third party, that is the DeLuca program, you will not be charged, and estimated hours and compensation will be aligned with the program's requirements. And that's why this 15-hour, $300 project is aligned with the program's requirements. So I know that can be a little bit confusing the way you first see amount you pay, but swear, if you're going through the DeLuca program, if you have DeLuca listed right here, then you will not be paying a dime to engage these Connecticut and Florida students. But appreciate that question, because always helpful to extra clarify that. Any other questions, folks? All right, I will hang out for a few more minutes. If you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to put those in the chat. Do not hesitate to raise your hand. But as we're wrapping up, just want to say thank you to all of you for taking some time to be with us today. Really looking forward to seeing your companies on the platform, seeing your projects on the platform, and to you giving these really talented, enthusiastic students and recent graduates the opportunity to support your organizations and companies. So thank you so much.